Rubik from Dota 2. Rubik is one of the most famous spell-stealing characters in gaming. In Dota, he is known as the Grand Magus, a brilliant mage with a sharp mind and even sharper pride. In his lore, Rubik is the son of Aghanim, one of the most legendary wizards in Dota history. Because of that, Rubik grew up surrounded by powerful magic and huge expectations, but instead of staying in his father's shadow, he became feared for a very different reason. He could study other people's magic, understand it almost instantly, and then use it against them. Valve's official lore describes him turning hostile Magi's own spells back on them. Rubik's signature ability is called Spell Steal. It lets him pick an enemy hero and snatch the last spell they cast, then use it like it's his own. He keeps that stolen spell for several minutes, or until he dies. He can't steal item abilities, and usually he grabs the regular version of the spell. But with Aghanim's Shard and Scepter, Rubik's stolen abilities get upgraded and boosted, and his spell steal range increases even further thanks to his cast range bonuses. Beyond stealing, Rubik becomes even better because of his passive Arcane Supremacy. This gives him another extra cast range and spell amplification, which means many stolen spells can be used from farther away and can hit even harder in Rubik's hands. On top of that, Spell Steal itself reduces the cooldown of stolen spells, so Rubik is not just copying magic. Sometimes he is using it more efficiently than the original hero. And that is why Rubik stands out from other copy characters. He's a support mage who doesn't deal the most damage, but he enables his team by stealing enemy abilities and using them at the perfect moment. Other characters may copy power, but Rubik often makes that power look cleaner, smarter, and more dangerous. A great Rubik player knows exactly which spell matters most in a fight and can completely change the game with one perfect steal, like a chess player always thinking 2 moves ahead. Kirby from Dreamland. Nintendo describes him as a powerful pink hero who has been fighting enemies since 1992, and across the series, he is usually shown protecting his home, planet Popstar, from all kinds of threats. That contrast is part of what makes Kirby so memorable. He looks soft and friendly, but he is always capable of taking on much bigger dangers than himself. What truly makes Kirby special is his copy ability. By inhaling certain enemies, Kirby can take their powers and use them as his own. Depending on what he copies, he can become a swordsman, use fire, throw bombs, control ice, or gain many other abilities. This power has become one of the defining features of the series, giving Kirby a huge range of tools instead of locking him into just one fighting style. In newer games like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo still presents copy abilities as one of Kirby's core features, even showing how some of them can be upgraded into stronger forms. The reason Kirby stands out is that he does not copy just as a gimmick. Copying is the heart of how he survives, explores, and wins. Many characters can imitate one skill or steal one ultimate move, but Kirby can build his entire approach around whatever power he needs at that moment. If a stage requires speed, range, or raw strength, Kirby can often adapt by taking the right ability. Another reason people love Kirby is that his copy powers are easy to recognize and fun to remember. When he gains an ability, he often gets a matching hat, costume, or visual change that instantly tells you what he can do. This makes Kirby one of the clearest and most approachable examples of a copy-based character in gaming. Even someone completely new to the topic can understand him right away. Kirby swallows an enemy, takes its power, and turns that power into his own weapon. It is also worth mentioning that Kirby is not the only character in his series connected to copying abilities. Shadow Kirby from the Mirror World is basically a darker counterpart to Kirby, and is sometimes shown using copy abilities in battles against him. Gooey is another good example. Gooey is one of Kirby's friends, and although he comes from the same material as Dark Matter, he is friendly instead of evil. In games like Kirby's Dream Land 3, Gooey can also copy abilities, making him one of the few other notable characters in the series who shares that kind of power. Mukujin from Tekken. Mukujin is a living wooden training dummy said to be made from an ancient tree. In Tekken's story, Mukujin awakens whenever a great evil appears. He first comes to life when Ogre is released in Tekken 3, and later reawakens again when other supernatural threats like Jinpachi and Azazel appear. In simple terms, Mukujin is like a silent guardian that moves only when the world is in serious danger. He does not have one fixed martial art of his own. Instead, he copies the fighting style of other Tekken characters. That means when you play Mukujin, you are not always fighting the same way. His style changes, and he can suddenly fight like a completely different member of the roster. That makes him a copy-based character, but in a very pure form. He does not just borrow one move or one power, he borrows a whole fighting style. That is also why Mokujin is better in one very important way. He represents variety better than almost anyone. Other mimic characters may copy for a moment, but Mokujin's whole identity is built around adaptation. He is like a living summary of Tekken itself. If someone wants a character that feels unpredictable, playful, and deeply tied to the series' many martial arts, Mokujin stands out immediately. He turns the idea of copying into his entire fighting philosophy. There are also other Tekken characters who copy styles, and they are worth mentioning alongside Mokujin, such as Tetsujin and Kombat. Tetsujin is basically the metal version of Mokujin. He also uses mimicry rather than a unique fighting style. Kombat is a machine that can learn and mimic human fighting movements. However, they are much less central to the series. Seth from Street Fighter. Seth is the main antagonist of Street Fighter IV and a recurring character in Street Fighter V, is tied to Shadaloo's Weapons Division, SIN. He is an artificial being with a body modified around the Tandon engine, a device designed to analyze and reproduce combat techniques. In other words, Seth was made to study fighters, understand their power, and turn that knowledge into a weapon. In Street Fighter IV, Seth was famous for using attacks associated with other fighters, like borrowing techniques that clearly resembled moves from characters across the roster. In Street Fighter V, that idea became more direct with Tandon Engine, Seth's V-Skill 1, which allows Seth to use the opponent's abilities. Capcom's official character data even describes Seth as a fighter who can utilize other fighters' special moves and adapt playstyle depending on the matchup. What makes Seth feel better than a lot of other copy-style characters is speed and control. Seth does not copy in a clumsy or random way. Seth fights like a machine built to process combat perfectly. That means the copied techniques are not just there for show. They fit into an aggressive, flexible fighting style. Seth can pressure, mix up the opponent, and quickly turn stolen knowledge into offense. And Seth is not alone in Street Fighter when it comes to imitation. 12 is another artificial fighter known for changing its body and mimicking attacks, using shape-shifting in a more unstable, experimental way. 11 is even more mysterious, acting more like a prototype life form that can take on the form or fighting data of others depending on the game mode or presentation. Compared to them, Seth feels more complete and more controlled, and the imitation of a finished weapon. Android 21 from Dragon Ball FighterZ. Android 21 is a non-canon character, primarily known as the main antagonist of the game Dragon Ball FighterZ. She was once a brilliant scientist named Vomi, who is a canon character from Dragon Ball series. After her death, Dr. Gero, her husband, turned her into a bio-android known as Android 21. As a new type android, her physiology grants her several passive and active powers. Her absorption, like Majin Buu and Cell, she can increase her power by absorbing other life forms, often by turning them into sweets and eating them. Using her signature move, Connoisseur Cut, she can stab the opponent to absorb their energy and steal their moves. Through Connoisseur Cut, Android 21 can store up to 4 moves in slots above her key meter. The moves she gains depend on the family of the character she hits. Another thing that makes her stand out is her split nature. Android 21 has both a more human, intelligent side and a corrupted, hungry, evil side. That conflict gives her more personality than a simple monster villain. She is dangerous not only because she is strong, but because her mind and body are both unstable. That mix of genius, hunger, and stolen power is a big reason why she became one of the most memorable, original characters in Dragon Ball games. Blue Mage Job from Final Fantasy. The Blue Mage is one of the most unique job classes in Final Fantasy. Unlike the usual mage who learns magic from books, crystals, or teachers, the Blue Mage learns by studying monsters. The job first appeared in Final Fantasy V, where blue magic was introduced as a style of magic copied from enemy attacks rather than bought from shops like normal spells. That is what makes the Blue Mage so special. Its main idea is simple. See an enemy use a strange or powerful skill, survive it, and then learn it for yourself. In many Final Fantasy games, blue magic is tied to enemy techniques, monster skills, or unusual spells that normal black mages and white mages do not use. Depending on the game, the exact learning method changes a little, but the core identity stays the same. Blue mages turn enemy power into their own. A blue mage grows stronger by understanding enemies. Instead of only leveling up in the normal way, the player is rewarded for paying attention, experimenting, and finding rare attacks worth learning. That makes the job feel clever and different from more straightforward fighters or spellcasters. In Final Fantasy V, for example, blue magic includes a wide mix of offense, defense, support, healing, and utility, making the job extremely flexible. Beyond learning, blue mages have a balanced toolkit. They're strong enough to hold their own in direct combat, yet magical enough to cast spells. They typically have access to a blue magic list, a massive collection of monster abilities they've learned, including White Wind, healing, missile, ranged attack, self-destruct, massive damage at the cost of health, and Aqua Breath, water damage in an area. They're like encyclopedias of combat. A skilled blue mage knows exactly which learned ability to use in each situation. They're strategists who prepare before battle, deciding which abilities to equip from their extensive collection. And when you talk about famous blue mage characters, a few names always come up. Strago Magus from Final Fantasy VI is one of the classic examples, using his lore command to cast blue magic. Quistis Trep from Final Fantasy VIII is another famous blue mage, with blue magic tied to her limit break. Queen Aquen from Final Fantasy IX is also strongly associated with the role, learning enemy abilities in a very unusual way by consuming foes. And Kimahri Ronso from Final Fantasy X is often remembered as a blue mage-style character because of his Lancet and Ronso Rage, which connect him to enemy-based skill learning. Boki from Copy Kitty. Boki is from the indie game Copy Kitty. She is a character built around one big dream. She wants to become a real hero. However, she is not fully confident in herself yet. To help her improve, her uncle Savant creates a virtual reality combat program where she can train by fighting robots in cyberspace. This setup gives Boki a fun and light background because her story is not about being a dark warrior or a chosen legend. Instead, it is about a girl training hard, learning her powers, and trying to prove that she can become the hero she wants to be. She can copy the special powers of enemies she fights, but she does not stop there. Boki can also combine up to 3 copied abilities at the same time to create a brand new superweapon. Official store and press descriptions say this system leads to around 175 different combined weapons, with many of them being handcrafted rather than simple mixes. That means Boki is not just imitating powers one by one, she is turning copied skills into something bigger and more creative. A nice extra detail about Boki is that her game's whole identity is built around speed, experimentation, and fun. She is not written as someone who steals powers in a cruel or controlling way. Instead, her copying feels energetic, creative, and almost superhero-like, which matches her dream of becoming a hero. That gives Boki a different tone from darker power-stealing characters. She shows that copying abilities can feel exciting, colorful, and imaginative instead of threatening. Sylas from League of Legends. Sylas is one of the best power-stealing characters in video games because his whole story already fits that idea. Sylas was born enslaved in the kingdom of Demacia, where magic is forbidden and mages are imprisoned. Despite the chains, Sylas discovered he had the ability to manipulate magic through sheer force of will. He didn't study magic like scholars do, he broke it, bent it to his will through raw power and determination. After years of captivity, he broke free and now hunts down powerful mages to steal their strongest abilities, using them to fight against those who imprisoned him and others like him. Riot's official biography describes him as someone who destroys the kingdom he once served by using the magic of those around him. That story leads perfectly into his main ability, Hijack. Hijack lets Sylas target an enemy champion and steal that champion's ultimate ability. He can then cast that stolen ultimate himself. In simple terms, Sylas takes the enemy's strongest move and turns it into his own weapon. Riot's champion page describes it plainly. Sylas steals the enemy's ultimate ability and can cast it freely. What makes Sylas especially interesting is that he is not just copying for fun. He is copying the most important skill on the enemy team. In League, a champion's ultimate is usually their biggest, most game-changing ability, and Hijack is built specifically to take that. The game's ability details also note that stolen ultimates scale based on Hijack's rank and Sylas's own stats, and that Sylas cannot keep stealing from the same target repeatedly without a delay. He can also summon magical chains to pull enemies toward him, dealing damage along the way. Additionally, he has a Kingslayer ability that heals him based on enemy health, making him both offensive and defensive. His chains can also be used to grapple around the map like Spider-Man, giving him incredible mobility. On top of that, some stolen ultimates become especially deadly on him because Hijack adapts them to Sylas's magic focus kit, including conversions for abilities that normally scale with attack damage instead of ability power. That means in the right matchup, Sylas can make another champion's signature move feel like it was made for him.